What's up, guys? I just wrapped up a phenomenal spotlight interview featuring Mansa Lamont, a local social entrepreneur, an advocate, and a creative writer. He shares in poems, he's written plays, and he's Cleveland's very own. I'm super excited to bring this episode to you during our Meet the Author series. Another way that we like to share, connect, and inspire through the LaRae platform. You guys don't want to miss out, so never miss a beat. Stay mic'd up with LaRae.
All right, this is your brother, Mansa Lamont, and if it's poetry, you know it's me. We mic'd up with LaRae. Peace, peace, peace.
So you've been an amazing feature on our Meet the Author series.
Yeah.
As a creative writer, as a poet, as an influencer in our city and beyond. Obviously now learning what you're doing with the program in London. It's global. And I believe we're at a disposal now in our hands that we can have a global impact no other. So I'm really excited to feature you and your story and learn more about you, because we've been connected but disconnected in a way for, I don't know, over 5 years, I want to say. Originally went to your workshop as a poet, at my first ever poet workshop, and just connected with you that way, and then always just been following on social media. So I want to put together this series. I'm like, you're someone I gotta touch base with, and now we're looking to collaborate in other ways, and so I'm really excited to just open up the platform to our audience and viewership to learn more about you and your passion, your gifts, and your purpose in this work.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks for having me. It's a movement, and it's just like, you know, in my age, not to say that I'm old, but to see different generations come up and make things better make it better in terms of the way that it was before. It's just like, wow, you know, we got all this technology, we got all of these ways and means, and I feel like now's the time for us to get rid of the middleman or the middle person, because that's what's been holding us back, you know.
And to learn, we have direct access to the source. I think for so long we've always been conditioned to think that we have to go through someone else to get to the source, or get the substance of the source. But now learning, you know, we have direct access, and that to me creates such of a peace of mind that I don't think generationally has ever really been encountered, at least like the last 4 to 5 generations of our families. Maybe back in our deep ancestral, being connected with nature and creation more. But now it's just like getting back to that, but it is an evolution of what that has become over time. You
know, I feel like the old is about to be new. You know what I'm saying? So I love jazz, avant-garde jazz, and it's just like, you see what's out here now. It's like, I don't want any of that. I want something new. But you go back and you find something that's like, oh man, this is so dope. Especially when it comes to what our ancestors did before. The working with the hands, the having to force to grow your own food, build your own houses. Now we're getting back to that. I mean, if one thing I've learned from the pandemic is that we can do it ourselves. You know, I would get so frustrated with meeting people that you would see, and it's just like, man, I wish I could do that. And you see them and you meet them and you get to know them, and it's just like, man, I could do this. This is not even that hard. So that's what it was with me. That's how I started. I went to a poetry workshop, and poetry workshop wasn't good. I was affiliated with a group. It was full of attitudes and personalities. I'm this, I'm that. And I was just like, man, why am I chasing y'all? I can do my own thing. And that's what it's been about. And that's one of the passions of mine, is not only writing poetry, but it's the teaching poetry. That's what I love to do. I mean, I do it more so than I work on other people's poetry more than my own sometimes. Because it's just something that I like to see when people, it's like the budding of flowers when they open up. It's just like you see that process and you see them become more confident in their craft. I'm looking forward to connecting on that realm, because the book I'm releasing has poetry in it. So I have each chapter, just to kind of give a little sneak peek. Each chapter ends with a poem that really represents what that year was, or what that
whole chapter was at that time. So like going back and putting myself back into that space took a lot out of me, because it's like, wow, where was I then? And then I had to reread the chapter and get back into it. It is really that character building, because I'm no longer that person. So I had to really picture myself, where was I then? And I actually went through old poetry and songs I wrote at that time to see, because there was a lot of different chapters bring different vibrancies, right? And it's just like energy. And I was looking back like, wow, like one chapter specifically is In My Darkest Place. That's the name of the chapter. So like the poem represents where my mind, where my spirit, where my body was at that time. And it was just like, wow, we have that power to really go back, like you're saying, go back into history, go back into where our ancestors are, and fellowship in a way that I believe we never really experienced to this extent, at least within this time frame.
You know, the thing about writing is it's just like we can all do it. We can all do it, and the way that you get good at it is looking at some of your favorites or reading some of your favorites, and just to see how they did it. It's just like, oh, how do you? It's not even learning how to spell. It's not even learning how to read. It's just seeing how, oh, they started here and they did this. It's not like, you know, with a camera or a photographer, you gotta learn aperture and shutter speed. You gotta lighting up. You have it in you. You just read the stories. So for me, like some of the people that I like to read, and they have autobiographies. Chester Himes is one. People from Cleveland, people who made it big. Langston Hughes, of course, and if you read some of his stuff, you'll hear talk a lot about his time here in Cleveland. Who else? You know, Malcolm X. Well, he didn't read it. Well, he didn't write it himself. But you know, there's a lot of June Jordan. There's different people, poets especially, who written their own story. And you can see how they did it. So,
it's so powerful.
And
that's another reason why I wanted to bring you on with the series, because we'll get right into it, the Poetry Thug, which is so dope, right? And learning where you're at now in your journey is so powerful. That's why I was like, man, you have such a load of knowledge and wisdom. And it's just like, even sitting down listening more of what you were sharing earlier on the show was like, wow, I had no idea, right? And we really don't until we sit down and we fellowship with one another, that we get to have it's an intimacy that's shared and exchanged. And so you were featured on our Meet the Author series panel discussion a couple of weeks ago with a few other authors. And this spotlight really wanted to talk about what this is all about for you guys tuning in. You guys can get your copy here, but like Poetry Thug and the return of the divine masculine. Like, tell me about that more, and then also tell me like why this Poetry Thug.
So Poetry Thug, so it's my idea of taking the arts back, snatching it back. So poetry, when you think about it, quality poetry that talks about sustainers, poetry that talks about couplets and all this other stuff, alliteration, all this other stuff. You have to understand that my ancestors, our people, created poetry. We created storytelling, literature, writing. So it's just taking it back. It's just taking it all back. And the return of the divine masculine is just me moving in my purpose of being of service. That's it. Being of service. And sometimes, you know, when we're of service, we can be like, oh man, I don't feel like doing this. I don't feel like doing that. That's your lower self. That's your lower self. It's all about giving back to others, because the universe will give you abundance every time. I'm telling you, I challenge you to do something for somebody else and see what happens.
Right.
See what happens. See what happens. It'll come back. So I feel like right now where I'm at, it's the study of everything that's invisible. You know what I'm saying? Because our ears, our five senses, we don't get the full spectrum. There's an invisible realm out here where our ancestors lie and they control and they look out for us. But we have to know that and we have to believe in it. So that's how it's been moving for me within the last year. Within the last year, so many changes is going on in my life where I feel like, oh man, what's about to happen? Mansa, Lamont Bay is my appellation as a Moorish American national, and recognizing who I was before slavery. So, before we were enslaved, we were Moors. In terms of those who are copper tone, we are Moors. So during slavery, we were given these misnomers. It went from Negro to Black to African American, things of that nature. And those names, those misnomers, takes us away from our heritage, our birthrights, and it's really very deep in regards to how our history and how it's been relayed to us were all fabrications and lies. It's a lot of study, it's a lot of reading, and I find myself in my true identity there. So as I evolve as an artist, that is the foundation that I'm standing on, is my spirituality and recognizing my true power in terms of who I am and my ability to govern my higher and lower self. That's what it is. A lot of us, we're stuck in our lower selves, which brings harm, which brings everything negative. And then we have a higher self, and that is of service, of love, truth, peace, justice, and freedom. So that's the foundation that I'm on now. And, learning about astrology, learning about meditation, the chakras, all of these new age theories that they talk about, positive self-thought, positive self-talk, and affirmations. That is a spirituality that connects us all and links us all together. So whatever, regardless of who you believe in, what you follow, I think the spirituality part is something that is most important these days. We talk about the entrepreneurship, we talk about giving back to the community and being of service is spiritual. That's how I see it. So, I'm just walking in my purpose. So, dealing with literacy, dealing with illiteracy, dealing with the creative arts, and just how the arts, everyone in my mind is an artist. We don't necessarily have to have the proper training, although it's good to invest in yourself. But, I just got into visual arts. And it's just one day, in terms of just doodling on a paper, I was just doodling, just trying to pass the time. And then now it's big old 18 by 24 pieces of pastels. I like pastels. And I've actually had my first show with Zygo Press. So I was a Zygo Press resident over the summer. I made about 11 pieces and they all sold. This was my first show ever. I'm like, wow. So it's just something that, we evolve. Every day is a new day, an opportunity to do things better, to show up in our higher self, and just keep the energy and the vibrations high. It's based on truth, justice, peace, freedom, and those are the things that we stand on as we move out. As I move out during the days, and interacting with different people. Yeah, because it's all about the upliftment of humanity. So it's always been about service. So, I graduated from John F. Kennedy High School way back in 1998, a long time ago. And I wanted to be a police officer. And the thing with, I was a cadet and everything. So the thing with the Cleveland police was that you had to be 21 years old to sign up. So, I decided to go into the National Guard as a military police officer. So it filled up that time between 18 and 21. So I've always wanted to be of service. I always wanted to be helpful in my community in terms of addressing drugs, addressing the violence, addressing the sex. So many things that comes with the culture of poverty. And, a lot of the culture shock for me and coming up in an all Black community was when I stepped outside of that community. And then you experience different types and levels and tones of racism and discrimination. But that's something that, I was able to move through without really it having a real impact on me as I look at who I am, in terms of just being able to persevere and just move through it. I grew up with my father and my mother involved, so having a family, a strong family really made, and I got a little sister, so it really made me well-rounded. But like I said, when I stepped out of college as a National Guardsman, so I went away to Alabama, came back, and it was 2 weeks in the summer, 1 weekend a month. I was a Cleveland State student at that time, so I was moving on that path. But the thing that changed my ideas of being a police officer was just how absolute power can corrupt, and paying attention to how I was treated in a lot of situations, just being young and so-called black, coming up in the neighborhoods, being harassed, the arrest, all that kind of stuff. So, I decided to become a social worker. I was just able to establish a nonprofit organization called the Griot Project, where we basically get together, and it's all about uplifting humanity through the visual, literary, and performing arts. So, I started this organization a while back, like back in 2012. It rose and it fell, it rose again and it fell, but it's a nonprofit, so it's just something that I control. Me and my 3 boys and my mom. Those are my board members, and then we got other partners, people that I grew up with, and it's just been all about producing and being productive as a poet, as a writer, as a visual artist. So then I got into this last year. I developed what is called Griot Root and Culture, which is a desktop publishing company. So I produce zines. Zines is just a small magazine. That's why it's called zine, short for zine. And it's usually 12 to 25 pages of anything that you want to write about. It could be poetry, which is my forte, but it could be rap lyrics, it could be short stories, it could be those things. So the whole idea is to get the community to read, write, and recite. Those are the tenets of literacy. And then there's arithmetic. But what we're dealing with now in the city of Cleveland is 66% of the adults are reading at a 3rd grade level. So, I do have a background in teaching people how to read and things like that, but it's more about getting people excited about telling their story through poetry and short stories, memoir. But the forte is poetry because it's the most accessible art form, in terms of it being short. You can read a whole book of poetry in a day. You don't have to be intimidated by the novels and things like that. So I decided to start with poetry. So if you're an artist and you consider yourself to be a starving artist, there's grants and residencies out there that you can go after that'll be supportive, and they just want you to create. So this is something that I do often in terms of going after funding. You got Neighborhood Connections that gives you funding. They supported us last year, the Read, Write, Recite Literacy Guild's Literacy Matters campaign, so I was able to work through that. I did the Zygote Press, and also I'm affiliated with an organization that's based out of London, England. It is called the Obsidian Foundation for Poets, so it's more so for black poets who are it's an international situation, but it's more so geared towards black poets in England. And I was just throwing, Submittable. And you just type in what you do, visual art, you type in literary art, and they'll show you everything that you can go after. So, the spirituality is held in my ability to create, in our ability to create. So, great God, Jesus, Buddha, whoever you pray, they will find a way for you to be your best self. The universe wants us to win. I never really felt like, and it's always these negative thoughts that come. We're drownings in negative thoughts and negativity. It's up to us to really be able to see through that and to remain steadfast on our purpose and confident. So that's, like we were saying earlier, the bedrock for me coming out, re-emerging, is my spirituality. God will provide all things that you need. You just got to know how and be confident and knowing how to ask. So yeah. So service, that's me.
All right, so talking about the Meet the Author series, spotlighting what you're doing, I just want to make sure that like our audience, they can follow you, get in contact with you, and then learn how they can work with you possibly.
So right now I'm just on Instagram. Well, I'm on Facebook, but I'm not really on Facebook, so I'm more so on Instagram. It's Poet Mansa Lamont Bay on both of them.
Okay.
Yeah, Poet Mansa Lamont Bay on both of them. Typically with the creative writing workshops, I'll put an invite on Instagram, and then I'll put out a email blast to everyone that I have an email with if they're interested. The way that my workshops work is it'll be a featured poet. So say we'll do June Jordan. We'll look at her life. We'll look at an interview that was some type of video thing that she may have out there. Interview. I know June Jordan, she had some video poems and where she was standing out doing poetry. Then we'll look at some of her favorite poems or notable poems. And then we'll write in the spirit of the particular author.
Oh, so that's dope.
Yeah, we've done June Jordan. We've done, I'm doing Langston Hughes right now. Yeah, so the workshop, we develop the poems together. We come back. It's like a 4-week type of thing. I do it monthly, try to get a monthly cohort. Each workshop is a different poet. And then at the end, you should have 4 poems.
Okay.
And then we'll put them into an anthology where we'll publish. And then we'll have a reading. Invite your friends and family out. They can come to the poetry recital. That'll be at the end. So, and then I help people publish their stuff as well.
Right. You guys seen it here first. You got some dope opportunities that Mansa's working on a consistent basis. And I really wanted to spotlight you because I've seen so much of the work that you've been doing. And now it's full circle. Now learning so much of the backstory. And the wins that they care, I want to make sure I give you your flowers. I don't know if you're familiar with the Kanye West doc that's been. I don't know if you've been watching it. And his emphasis on genius is something like, even today I woke up like, I am a genius. And I shouldn't feel Sean because I feel that way about myself, because that's what we're created to be.
That's it.
So I want to just go ahead and give the flower that you're a walking genius.
Oh, okay.
I really like just our conversation and learning more about you and what you're contributing to our society, but not even society, but to humankind, right? And to humanity across. I appreciate all of that. I'm really looking forward to working with you, because I know we're going to create some dope stuff. But thank you so much for jumping on the LaRae platform and the Meet the Author series to just open up and be vulnerable about your background, where you come from, and what you're evolving into.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, you get flowers too. Just seeing how you evolve makes me, and I'm sure everyone else who's watching, to step up and get it going. Thank
you so much. And you guys can stay tuned into LaRae being mic'd up. I appreciate the opportunity to spotlight stories like Mansa and the evolution of who we are as people, and continuing to create that through writing, through arts and culture, through entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship, community building. The list goes on. And so this is a pleasure of mine and a privilege of mine to continue to open up the platform and create a platform where we can share our stories and uplift our voices. So thank you for the opportunity.
All right, wow.